Just to quickly recap, uh, last week we discussed chapter 3. Primarily, chapter 3 is Karma Yoga, and it teaches how to perform work in this world. First, in the beginning of the chapter begins with a question from Arjuna, whether what is the right thing for him to do, whether to renounce or to fight. The first two verses are the questions of Arjuna. And Krishna clarifies what is the real meaning of renunciation in this section 1 to 10. So the Tyaga, renunciation, is not just mere external renunciation, but real, renunciation is one of the true renunciation is one of the heart. That's what is discussed. In the next section, the rungs of the yoga ladder. If you cannot renounce, if you cannot perform karma yoga, you can perform karma kanda. Like that, Krishna gives rungs of the yoga ladder. After that, even if you are renounced in your heart, it is still better to perform your duty to set a good example for the society. That is the exemplary part of it. And then, while one desires to perform duty sincerely, there is something that stops one from performing his duty. That's called the enemy of the soul, which is the lust that stops one from performing his duty. So that's the last section that is discussed. So we discussed this tree analogy last week in detail. I will not go in detail. Yeah. So this is the verse in second chapter that caused the confusion for Arjuna. When Krishna spoke this, Duren hi avaram karma buddhi yoga dhananjaya buddho sharanam aviccha kripana phalahetav. Keep all immovable activities far distant by devotion service, and in that consciousness surrender unto the Lord. Those who want to enjoy the fruits of their work are misers. So this verse confused Arjuna. He thought fighting is actually avaram karma. That's why he doesn't want to fight. Again, he questions about the duty of fighting in the beginning of this chapter. But actually, Krishna is giving, he's condemning karma kanda with respect to nishkama karma yoga. That is what Krishna meant by avaram karma. Yeah. So this is the flow. I'll just quickly read. So it begins with Arjuna's question: should I fight the war or go to forest and renounce the world? Krishna tells Arjuna, for you, karma yoga is better. Karma yoga means performing your duty. Performance of your duty is better for you. If you are not qualified for karma yoga, then you can do karma kanda. Because ultimately, even karma kanda slowly elevates one to purification level. So slowly it will elevate you to karma yoga. So it is better to perform karma kanda rather than giving up your duty. Even if you are purified and you don't need to perform karma yoga, you can directly just meditate on Lord because you are so detached. It is still better to perform karma yoga because the world needs good examples. So then the question comes, will by performing karma yoga one get liberated? So that's Krishna answer saying karma yoga also leads to purification and one can achieve liberation. Yeah, while performing duty, one gets entangled. Arjuna asks how to avoid this. Krishna tells, uh, yeah, the main obstacle is lust. And he clarifies how lust works and gives an understanding how to curb it towards the last two verses in the chapter. So ultimately, Krishna concludes that Arjuna should fight his duty, dutifully fight for his own. Ultimately, it's ideal for Arjuna to fight. So now these are the overview of sections. I mean, same thing that we discussed right now. Yeah. So here now we can just quickly go over the chapter and read the verses, and if any questions we can discuss further. Hmm? So first section, Karma Yoga is better than Jnana Yoga, right? 1 to 10 verses. So let's quickly read anyone can read 1 to 10.
I'll read, bro.
Yes, Prabhu. Yeah.
So, text 1. Arjuna said, "O Janardana, O Keshava, why do you want to engage me in this ghastly warfare
Hmm.
if you think that intelligence is better than fruitive work?"
Yep.
So,
First two verses are questions further. Hmm?
right.
Okay.
My intelligence is bewildered by your equivocal instructions. Therefore, please tell me decisively which will be most beneficial for me. Text 3. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O sinless Arjuna, I have already explained that there are two classes of men who try to realize the self. Some are inclined to understand it by empirical, philosophical speculation, and others are by devotional service.
Mhm.
Text 4. Not by merely abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from reaction, nor by renunciation alone can one attain perfection.
Yeah. Simply by abstaining work one will not get freedom from reaction. It's a
Important one.
very instructive, very powerful instruction, because you are not purified inside. You cannot stop reactions. You would act according to your nature. Hmm.
That's why everyone is forced to act helplessly according to the qualities he has acquired from the modes of material nature.
Right.
Therefore, no one can refrain from doing something, not even for a moment.
Right. So everyone will act according to his own nature, according to guna and karma. So it is better to engage God-given abilities in the service of God rather than giving up.
Text 6. One who restrains the senses of action, but whose mind dwells on sense objects, certainly deludes himself and is called a pretender.
Mm. If your mind is still on the sense objects, but you externally try to show off as if you are renounced, you are called a cheater or pretender.
Text 7. On the other hand, if a sincere person tries to control the active senses by the mind and begins Karma Yoga in Krishna consciousness without attachment, he is by far superior.
Mm. This is the so it's better to be engaged according to your nature.
Text 8. Perform your prescribed duty, for doing so is better than not working. One cannot even maintain one's physical body without work.
Right. So you must work. Very clearly, Krishna is saying, perform your prescribed duty. As a Kshatriya, you should better fight.
Work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work causes bondage in this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction. In that way, you will always remain free from bondage.
Yeah, so this is karma yoga, doing it as a sacrifice to Vishnu. Anything we perform in our life, it has to be done as a sacrifice to Vishnu. Otherwise, work causes bondage. Any work we perform in this world will actually bind you to this material world. Anything, whether you're eating or any action we perform, would have some reactions. That's why the in the Vedic times, there was something called Panchamaha. Everybody, every home, they perform this Panchamaha, because even breathing or walking, we are actually causing harm in this world. We kill some microbes, or so everyone must perform sacrifice. Sacrifice means doing it for the pleasure of Vishnu. So Panchamaha was performed. For us, what is the yajna recommended in this says?
Sankirtana.
Sankirtan yajna. Yeah, Prabhupada clarifies that in this purport. The form of yajna that is recommended for Kali Yuga is Sankirtan. So we should chant the holy name of the Lord every single day. By doing that, that is the performance of sacrifice for this age. So that is the only way to keep ourselves free from bondage in this material world, in this Kali Yuga. Yeah.
Dhananjay Prabhu has a question, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu. Yeah.
In chat, he has put that.
I was just wondering how you spelt that, the Pancha Yajna.
Okay. Pancha Mahayajna. The So in the purport, Prabhupada actually explains that. Let me just open up 10th purport. Yeah, so this one. So this is like a, I know, I remember I used to watch my friend who was a Brahmana. He used to do this at his home when we were children. So they put a fire sacrifice every single day actually at their home, and they chant certain mantras and perform this Panchamaha. It takes about 15 minutes. We can do like that that is to purify any actions performed throughout the day. So that's like the one thing they do in the beginning of the day. But for us, Sankirtan Yajna is the recommended form. Here it is mentioned, Prabhupada. Easiest performance of Yajna is Sankirtan Yajna, which can be performed by anyone in this world who accepts the principles of Krishna consciousness. Yajna means the principle of sacrifice. Sacrifice means renouncing our own enjoyment, right, for the pleasure of Krishna. Doing something for the pleasure of Krishna. That's called a sacrifice. Oh, we are in this. Yeah.
So we're done with this book.
Yes. Yeah.
In
Number
the
10.
sorry,
Did we read this, Prabhu?
no, we're going to read 10 now.
Yeah. Yes, read, Prabhu. Yeah.
In the beginning of
Prabhuji,
Mm-hmm.
one quick question, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
So sacrifice, you said that it is renouncing our own enjoyment and doing things for Krishna's enjoyment, right? But sacrifices are also performed for our own material desires in the mode of passion and ignorance. Is that not sacrifice, Prabhuji?
Yeah, it is also sacrifice. But again, yeah, so that is a lower grade sacrifice. Yeah. Sankirtan Yajna is the ideal sacrifice, right? Where we do only for the pleasure of Krishna without any expectation. But people perform in the mode of ignorance, mode of passion also,
Mm-hmm.
and it will have good karmic results accordingly. But yeah, it will again bind you.
But If I understood correctly, the sacrifice done to Vishnu
Is the real sacrifice.
our desires are
Hmm.
still good, but whereas sacrifice done to the demigods
Hmm.
is, again, it depends on what the mode that person is, right? So
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. That is also true.
But
Basically,
there are also sacrifices for Vishnu for material desire also, right, Prabhuji?
yeah. There is this beautiful verse in Bhagavatam. Akama sarva kamava moksha kama udarati tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. Akama sarva kamava. Yeah, it is recommended to worship Lord in any case, whether you are full of material desires or no material desires, or desiring liberation. It is recommended to worship Lord Vishnu, because ultimately that is purifying. But if you approach demigods for the same thing, it is actually binding. So whether one is without desire, like a devotee, or desirous of fruitive results, sarva kamova, or is after liberation, one should, with all efforts, try to worship the Supreme Lord for complete perfection, culminating in Krishna consciousness. So if one approaches Vishnu in any case, it will lead to liberation ultimately. That's the purport behind this. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Read this, Prabhuji.
yeah. So in the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures sent fourth generation of men and demigods, sent forth generations of men and demigods, along with sacrifices for Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, "Be thou happy by this yajna sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation."
Yeah. So just like a father before the child is born makes the arrangements, right? For example, here we have a car seat purchased for the boy, for the baby to born, and the clothes are born. Everything is clothes are bought. Everything is arranged before the child comes out into the home, right? So similarly, just before the jivas were sent to the material existence, Krishna also made an arrangement on how they can live happily in this existence. And he sent generations of men and demigods. And there is a symbiotic relation between the two. So the jivas of the lower planetary systems, like our planet Bhuloka, they would worship the demigods, which are the living on the higher planetary systems, and they fulfilled their desires and also ultimately achieve liberation. So this is the symbiotic arrangement Lord has arranged. So all the jivas in the lower planetary systems, they can worship, or they can um, offer sacrifices to the demigods, and demigods being pleased, they would be arranging the necessities for the jivas. So this is a symbiotic relation. But the whole point is, but through performance of these sacrifices, they would understand the glory of God ultimately, and they will ultimately try to work towards connecting to God Himself directly. So this is the symbiotic uh, arrangement that was done by Lord for elevation, for a happy life of the jivas, and ultimately to achieve liberation in this existence. Any questions on this? So this is demigods. Demigods are just like cabinet ministry exists within a state, who would take care of providing, who are in charge of different departments, and as per the needs of the communities they would actually serve serve those communities. So demigods are also powerful living entities who have um, through their previous karmic through their previous actions they were able to achieve the position of demigods. So they are like in charge for the lower living entities.
So Prabhuji, here the Lord is saying, "Be thou happy by this yajna," right? So
Mm.
there is no happiness in this material world, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, there is no, so this is material happiness basically at a lower level,
Okay.
but through performance of yajna alone one can be truly happy. Like
Mm.
I always give that example of if suppose a village wants water to their village, they can work with the city government who have the facility of water tank, and they can provide a pipeline to the village. The the so this is to give us an understanding of how symbiotic relationship works between lower living entities and higher living entities like demigods. So what do the village people do? They would pay a tax to the city government. When they pay the tax, the tax is like the sacrifice. So the city would take the money and arrange for the pipeline from the city water tank to the village. So that is the legal way of getting water to the village, right? The other illegal way is, suppose you see a pipeline and that pipeline is delivering water from place A to place B. You see that you can actually make the hole in the pipeline and pull water out, right? And so that's how. So suppose there are dacoits in between the two villages, in between the city and village. They found that the um, water is flowing through in this in this pipeline. They can always make a hole in the pipeline and pull the water just by, they just observe the mechanism how the water is flowing and they can exploit. That's how science works. Science doesn't see the origin and the overall symbiotic relationship between how the entire nature cosmos is working. They would only see within the purview of what they can understand and try to manipulate based on that. So the making of the hole in the pipeline is like science trying to meddle with the nature to increase the productivity of crop, or you know all the manipulation that we do without understanding the purpose of the things behind, just by observing mechanisms within the nature and exploiting them. That is like dacoits trying to break the pipeline, right? You can also achieve facilities through that, right? He can they can also, dacoits also can get water by breaking the pipeline. But what happens with that? Sooner or later they would be caught and they would be punished accordingly. So it can run for some time, it can run for decades, it can run for some centuries, the so-called exploitation of the nature. But ultimately nature would catch up and punish them back. So it is always better to work in harmony with nature, understand the superior plan and how the entire cosmos work, and try to be in harmony with nature rather than exploit the nature. So Krishna is giving on how you can get rain. If suppose there is drought in a particular state or village, you can actually perform Sankirtan Yajna or some other Yajna and please the demigods and get the water. Or you can work towards artificial rains, artificial insemination to produce rains and get the water, get the rain, right? It's often proved that artificial rains would never work actually. Uh, it's far more expensive. It defeats the purpose of, yeah, we can try to observe the nature and try to mimic it, but it may not work all the time, and many times it will have its own reactions accordingly. Yeah. So if you want to achieve anything, there is a process. That's what Krishna is saying here. There is a legal process, that is performance of yajna, as prescribed in the scriptures. That's what summarizing this line here. Is it making sense, Mataji?
Yeah, thank you so much, Prabhuji. Makes sense.
Yeah. So Prabhupada explains this Sankirtan Yajna. What's the right form of yajna in this is? Okay, let's move on. Okay, who is going to read now? Anyone else? From 11. Yeah, 1 second. Yeah, 11 to, sorry. Yeah, actually 10 itself. Yeah, 10 to 16 we can read. So here Krishna is comparing between Karma Yoga. Basically, this is giving an idea of the ladder. Right? If you are not qualified for Karma Yoga, you can perform Karma Kanda. 10 to 16. So 10th is read, we can read 11th onwards, 11 to 16. Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhupada. Translation by Divine Grace Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The
Yes, Srila Prabhupada.
demigods being pleased by sacrifices will also please you. And thus, by cooperation between men and demigods, prosperity will reign for all.
So the idea of demigods is given for the first time in Bhagavad Gita. Until now, the idea of demigods is not there at all. No, the concept of soul is given in the second chapter, and Sthita Prajna is given. Until now, it is all fine. Suddenly, demigods is a very a word that many people have confusion in understanding, and they would actually suddenly start doubting whether Bhagavad Gita is again a, is just a religious book. But the idea of demigods, we have to understand. If we all accept that there are these demigods, 33 crore demigods, right? So we have no problem. But how do we explain any newcomer, the concept of demigods? Right? Anybody has some ideas on how we can, um, these Indra, Varuna, Vayu, all these demigods, right? They all are departmental in charges. Anybody wants to throw some ideas on how they would explain the existence of demigods to uh, anybody who asks about question about that? Anyone wants to share some ideas?
Prabhu, the standard explanation
Hmm.
is there is a president of a country and
Hmm.
we have all these other ministers and so like education minister, health department, that this. So for even just like India to operate or any country to operate, we need so many ministers to take care of all these departments.
Hmm.
Or it is not that Krishna needs everybody, but
Hmm.
I mean, that is also there. Like we are saying, all these departments are needed for a country to operate.
Hmm.
But we also say Krishna doesn't need all these 33 crore demigods to operate, but all of them are being engaged in his service.
Yeah,
Right. So
that's a good way to put it together. Basically, to Krishna engages all these living entities, just like elder children would take care of younger children to for smooth running of the home when mother is busy at home, right? Similarly, these demigods are higher living entities, just like cabinet minister who are endowed with certain powers. Yeah, so that is one way. But some people would still question how these things work. We don't see them at all. How do you believe they exist? I mean, of course, God also is not seen to the naked eye. You need to follow certain process to perceive and experience God. But for demigods, we don't recommend any process to perceive and observe them. So one way I was hearing Chaitanya Prabhu. So the way he puts is to understand the existence of demigods. So many things in this world appear automatic, but just because something is automatic doesn't mean there is no brain behind it. For example, if you visit a restaurant, okay, a very big 5-star restaurant, or even corporate offices, you go at the door, you don't do anything, just by observing that the person is there, and if he has the permission to enter into the building, the door would automatically open, right? uh, that automatic opening of the door appears uh, very simplistic arrangement, but behind that arrangement, right, so there is a bigger brain at work. Even though it appears like a simple arrangement, there is a controller behind it, right? So similarly, the phenomenon of rain, right, the way the rains work, it's it's extremely, I mean, if you want to explain the phenomenon, it's very simple, right? So the water from the seas gets evaporated by the sunlight, the vapor goes up, and then clouds would form, and from the clouds, when they get condensed, they pour rain. So scientists try to mimic that, and they try to create artificial rains, but it was so difficult to control where the rain would fall, and how to levitate all these, how do you create this much heat naturally to produce this kind of vapor. It was proven to be a very bad experiment to mimic the nature in producing rains. And ultimately, in US, the departments have actually given up the idea of producing artificial rains because it was not economically viable. So the simple mechanism, we can explain it, but it's not that easy to mimic it, which means there must be some superior intelligence behind this mechanism that controls, whether we can see it or not. There is a very intelligent mechanism uh, behind these arrangements that are at work. So the perfect way in which the seasons change, everything is so well arranged. It appears very uh, simple externally. You can also understand the mechanisms, but to mimic it is not easy, which tells that some process at work behind it. And so that we call as the control of the demigods. The mechanism that appears easy and simple to understand, but the one that cannot be mimicked, right? It's not easy because there is some control behind it on how these mechanisms are working in such orderly fashion. So through that, so similarly, when the child is born, the mother suddenly gets milk. There is no milk before that. There is no milk after that. But at that time, exactly nature arranges for milk in the mother, in the body of mother. Uh, and all the living entities somehow subsist in this nature. They don't, for example, elephant eats 30 kilos of grass every single day, and it lives its life, full life, 100 years, and there is arrangement for its food on every single day. It gets 30 kilos of grass every single day. That's how it sustains in the forest. So there is a perfect arrangement for each jiva, and perfect arrangement behind uh, s- you know every arrangement within the nature that is at work. We are not able to perceive it. We can understand mechanism, but it's very difficult to mimic it, or how these things are working. We digest food. We don't know how we digest. It just works. And did I create my digestive system? I didn't create. It was there from beginning. I accepted it. I understand how it works, but can I mimic that? No, I can't. So there is something behind that is in control, that is actually uh, managing it in a very efficient way. So, so this implies very well there is some control behind all these things, and Vedas describe these are the these the there are personalities behind it. There are personalities behind it that are actually controlling the digestion, controlling breathing, controlling this rain, clouds. Everything is being very well controlled and organized. And these are the personalities are called demigods. I hope that made some sense.
And seasons also, Prabhuji, seasons.
Season changes. So all these things are working very efficiently, and there is a control behind all this. We should understand that. Okay. Yeah, let's move on.
In charge of the various necessities of life, the demigods being satisfied by the performance of yajna will supply all necessities to you. But he who enjoys such gifts without offering them to the demigods in return is certainly a thief.
Yeah, why is he a thief? Because he's just accepting the fruits without actually recognizing the origin of the fruits. So anything we enjoy in this world, the food we eat, of course we may pay to the shopkeeper some money to get the rice bag or whatever, right? The provisions. But ultimately we should understand nature is providing all these facilities. So it is our duty to remember. Ideally, we should remember Krishna for everything we get. But at least understand if there is a good rain, you should thank Varuna Dev like that. When there is good sunlight, you know you you are grateful to Surya Narayana. Like that, we should basically thank the demigods in return for what they are providing us. Ultimately, Krishna wants some kind of. These are very easy to understand, right? Rain every day we see air every day in our experience, right? So it's easy to understand, yes, these demigods exist, and I should thank them. But ultimately all these demigods are empowered by Krishna himself. So if you remember Krishna with with every with everything that you are getting in life, so that is the ultimate way of uh, reciprocation. We should reciprocate. That's the whole point. We should be grateful for what we have in this world, and what we achieve in this life. Okay, what we are provided with in this life. So that's what Prabhupada explains. No one can manufacture anything. Take for example all the eatables, everything. Prabhupada explains that we should be grateful, and Prabhupada ultimately says Sankirtan Yajna is the right way. Yeah. Okay, Prabhu. Next.
The devotees of the Lord are released from all kinds of sins because they eat food which is offered first for sacrifice. Others who prepared food for personal sense enjoyment verily eat only sin.
Yeah. Whether you are eating vegetarian or non-vegetarian doesn't matter. If you are eating something, you better offer to the Lord before you eat, because even vegetables also have eating vegetables also would have some reaction, because ultimately that also involves killing some living entity, whether it is plants or whatever, right? So it involves karma. So always eat only prasadam, bhoga, that after offering the bhoga to Lord. Yes,
Hare
we
Krishna.
already follow that. Yeah. Hmm.
So you said if you're eating non-veg also we can offer no, right, Prabhuji?
No. Because Krishna doesn't accept that.
Yeah, so we can only offer what, because parents in India, we cannot we tell them only to offer vegetarian food, right?
Yes. Yeah. That's true.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhuji. All living bodies subsist on food grains which are produced from grains. Rains are produced by performance of yajna, sacrifice, and yajna is born of prescribed duties.
This is the symbiotic relation. How um, everybody lives on food grains. Food grains are produced from rains. Rains are produced by performance of sacrifice. And what is sacrifice? Sacrifice, the principle of sacrifice is explained. The principle of sacrifice is when you perform your duty, as per your guna and karma, that becomes your sacrifice, in the as a service to God. When you perform like that, it becomes yajna. Ultimately, everything, the sacrifice is to, again, Prabhupada focuses on Sankirtan Yajna in this. Yeah, let's read this.
Regulated activities are prescribed in the Vedas, and Vedas are directly manifested from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Consequently, the all-pervading transcendence is eternally situated in acts of sacrifice.
Yeah, it's very straightforward, right? Vedas are directly manifested from Supreme Lord. So, and the instructions in Vedas, which are prescribed duties, will help when we perform them. It will lead to transcendence. Yeah, last verse in this section.
My dear Arjuna, one who does not follow in human life the cycle of sacrifice, thus established by the Vedas, certainly leads a life full of sin. Living only for the satisfaction of the senses, such a person lives in vain.
Yeah, so ultimately Krishna is saying, perform sacrifice, otherwise you perish. You are going to come back to this world for sure. Yeah. The third section, even if you are qualified for Jnana Yoga, you're completely renounced in the heart, it is better to perform Karma Yoga to set a good example. So until now, it is just discussion about follow prescribed duties and perform your duties. That is the way for purifying yourself, right? 10 to 16, that is the section. Now in the and if you can't perform in a renounced spirit, perform with attachment, but follow prescribed duties. That way slowly you will elevate, right? That's the section we discussed. If you are not qualified for Jnana Yoga, if you are qualified for Jnana Yoga, it means you are fully renounced, and so you can give up your work. Still, it is better to perform Karma Yoga to set a good example. Verse 17 to 24. Yeah, anyone? This is a very simple chapter. Yeah, go ahead. Let's go ahead quickly.
But for one who takes pleasure in the self, whose human life is one of self-realization, and who is satisfied in self only, fully satiated, for him there is no duty.
One who is fully satisfied, right? One who is fully Krishna conscious. Actually, there is no need for performance of any duty, because he has already purified himself through self-realization. He's already, if somebody is very advanced already, for him there is no duty, there is no need for any duty. And Krishna further explains that he also better do it. Yeah, next.
A self-realized man has no purpose to fulfill in the discharge of his prescribed duties, nor has he any reason not to perform such work, nor has he any need to depend on any other living being.
If a person is fully self-realized, there is no purpose for his performance of duties. At the same time, he has no reason to not perform work. Like, for example, for Srila Prabhupada, he is already fully self-realized, but he was happily in Vrindavan. At the fag end of his life, he was translating Bhagavatam, but still he went to America to actually give Krishna consciousness to the world. Even though he has no reason to perform such work, still he performed, right? So that has helped so many living entities now.
Prabhuji, you said there was no reason for Srila Prabhupada to go, right? But he had reason, right? I mean, the Guru Maharaj told him to go.
Yeah. Spiritual reason. I mean, there is no material reason. I mean, so this is all we are discussing at Karma Kanda level, Karma Yoga level.
Okay.
Yeah. So of course, yeah, for him it is fulfilling the desire of his spiritual master. Yeah.
Okay.
But by not doing the duty, he will not be actually losing anything. He is already fully self-realized.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Prabhuji, and nor has he any dependence on other living beings. What does that really mean?
Which means he does not. Basically, he has no dependence on demigods or any other higher living entities. Generally, for provisions we depend on demigods, but for this self-realized soul, he is already directly connected with Krishna. So there is no need for him to depend on any other lower living entities.
Okay.
Yeah, just like Kuchela, right? Kuchela, he was a great composer. The king would ask him to compose songs on him, but he would never care to compose songs on his king. He always, remembering Krishna and was only singing, the holy name. So like that, the pure devotees, they only try to, they would only connect with Krishna in all circumstances. Yeah, so they have no dependence on any, for subsistence or anything. They don't really care for others. They don't need to. They have no dependence basically. Yeah, so here it's proper mention. A Krishna conscious man does not take shelter of any person, man or demigod. Whether he does in whatever he does in Krishna consciousness is sufficient in the discharge of his obligation.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Prabhu.
Therefore, without being attached to the fruits of activities, one should act as a matter of duty, for by working without attachment, one attains the supreme.
Yeah, this is Nishkam Karma Yoga. Basically, without being attached, just as a matter of duty. This is proper Karma Yoga. Matter of duty. As a matter of duty, one should work. But Krishna consciousness is one step ahead. It says, for the pleasure of Krishna work. So this matter of duty is replaced with for the pleasure of Krishna. Right? That's the difference between just Bhakti Yoga and Karma Yoga. You perform work, you don't renounce work. You work but for the pleasure of Krishna. This is pure karma Yoga level. Nishkam Karma Yoga.
Kings such as Janaka attained perfection solely by performance of prescribed duties. Therefore, just for the sake of educating the people in general, you should perform your work.
Arjuna, even though you are elevated, even though he didn't say you are elevated, because ultimately for Arjuna, it is better for him to perform his duties. So in the past also, great kings like Janaka Maharaj, they have attained perfection through performance solely of prescribed duties. So it is a path that is proven to work. So you can also, for the sake of educating people, you should perform your work. Now Krishna tells about himself.
Whatever action
24, yeah, sorry.
Whatever action a great man performs, common men follow, and whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues.
Yeah, this is a very famous verse, right? If suppose the king of a nation or the president of a nation is setting a very bad example, most of the people will be divided. That's how we are seeing now, right? There is so much commotion, fight, because the leader of the nation wouldn't accept the election result. There is still confusion, no? So much confusion. So many people are divided now. So actions by the leader are very critical, and they have a lot of influence on the people under him. So exemplary acts are recommended. So it's better for the leader to be active, to perform his prescribed duties and set very good standards of work. When he does that, everybody else follows in his steps, and the world would advance together. World would advance. How to act is given in Manusamhita, especially the leaders. How the society should function is given in Manusamhita. Yeah.
O son of Pritha, there is no work prescribed for me within all the three planetary systems, nor am I in want of anything, nor have I a need to obtain anything, and yet I am engaged in prescribed duties.
Yeah. For Krishna, in all the three planetary system, he has nothing to do. He is transcendental. But still, when he comes, he plays the role of a son, as a brother, as a um, he guides Arjuna and Pandavas. He is engaged in his duties as a husband. He was taking care of his wife and children. Even though there is no need, he's Atmaram. He's beyond transcendental, but still he performs his duties like a grahastha, like a king, like a father, just to set a good example. Because from his life, everybody can learn lessons. Now he tells the other. Yeah. Go ahead, Mataji.
For if I ever fail to engage in carefully performing prescribed duties, O Partha, certainly all men would follow my path.
Yeah, if Krishna doesn't set good example, everybody would give the reason, oh, Krishna didn't do, we don't need to do, right? For the same thing. Yeah.
If I did not perform prescribed duties, all these worlds would be put to ruination. I would be the cause of creating unwanted population, and I would thereby destroy the peace of all living beings.
Yeah, so through all these verses, Krishna is establishing that even if you are fully self-realized, even if you are God, when you are in this world, you should perform your prescribed duties, so that you can set a very good example for people in general. So last three verses are talking about the same point, right? So that finishes this section. Now Krishna in just 4 verses clarifies Karma Yoga and Karma Kanda, 25 to 29. This is a very simple purport.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yeah, please read.
Prabhuji, small question. So some people, they abandon everything and they go to the Himalayas, and then they are just doing tapas, or like yogis, right? Like all these, they are like so old and all that stuff. So for them, is that the prescribed duty?
No. Yeah, that is their nature. It's not prescribed duty. That their nature, they are very renounced at heart. So very few people are like that. 1 in 1,000 is like that. But if somebody is very spiritually, their nature is truly Brahmanical, they are completely renounced at their heart. It is okay for the sake of God if they are leaving.
Okay.
But if you cannot sustain, come back and do your work. Right?
Okay. Yeah. Can I read, Prabhuji?
Yes, Mataji.
Yeah. As the ignorant perform their duties with attachment to the results, the learned may similarly act, but without attachment, for the sake of leading people on the right path.
So the learned may similarly act. Their actions are similar, but there is no attachment in the action for the learned man, one who understands who he is, who is God, his relationship with God. So he performs the same action, but without attachment to results.
So as not to disrupt the minds of ignorant men attached to the fruitive results of prescribed duties, a learned person should not induce them to stop work. Rather, By working in the spirit of devotion, he should engage them in all sorts of activities for the gradual development of Krishna consciousness.
Yeah, we should not expect everybody to uh, act at a renounced spirit, act in renounced spirit. So we should, guide individually based on each individual's consciousness, if we are to guide them, and help them, help them slowly come to the higher levels of consciousness. Slowly inculcate the spirit of devotion in their action, and slowly advance them, help them advance. We should not. Main thing is, so okay, this is how it happens, right? Some people would force their friends to chant 16 rounds suddenly, right? Or to give up certain things like, eating onion, or those kind of abrupt actions are not recommended. Right? Slowly, we should, when we want to help them, understand their nature and where they are coming from, and try to help them from their level. Don't force your standards on them. That's what this whole point is all about. This do not disrupt minds of ignorant man attached to the fruitive results of prescribed duties. Somebody is attached worker, do not disturb them, because they would give up the work completely, or they would give up you, but they will not. Uh, so that's why we should be very careful when we speak with people in general, especially when sitting in temple. If you are sitting in Vyasasana and talking something, should be very careful with how the visitors would perceive what we speak. I remember one time one devotee was speaking in the temple, and my friend came at the same time to temple. He is one of our devotee only. He's a grihastha. So that time he said, you know, uh, these schools, outside schools, are all like slaughterhouses, right? Uh, and my friend felt very bad because he sends his children to outside school. I mean, most of us would send, and unfortunately, that devotee is also sending his child to the school. So my friend felt, this is hypocritical. You are speaking one thing and doing something else. So it's not really, if we cannot do something right away, it's better not speak about that standard. It is at a principal level, yes, it is not ideal to go send to public school, but you can always adjust and adjust at home, and see what you can do within your capacity, rather than condemn it. Yeah. Next.
The spirit soul, bewildered by the influence of false ego, thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by the three modes of material nature.
Mm. The false ego thinks that they are the actual doer of the activities, but actually it is the modes of nature that is in acting, not the self itself, right? For example, uh, we are driving the car, but our influence on moving the car is very simple, right? We just press the accelerator, and the whole engine comes together to make the car move, right? And there is a very big mechanism behind all of this. So similarly, we just desire, but we don't perform the activity. The whole material nature works. The modes of material nature is basically the the nature beyond the self that comes together to work. We are not the doer. We are just the desirer in this body. We are just the desirer. The nature comes together to perform the work according to our desire. We are not the ultimate doer.
One who is in the knowledge of absolute truth, O mighty armed, does not engage himself in the senses and sense gratification, knowing well the differences between work in devotion and work for fruitive results.
Yeah, this is very straightforward, right? One who understands God, he'll be engaging his senses for gratifying the senses of Krishna. That is his goal. He understands the difference between work and devotion